What it do, guys, and welcome back to another video. Now, in today's video, we're going to be taking a closer look at Atlas and an updated Landslide build for 2025 purposes. So we will be using an Augment here on screen, and again, it's going to be centered around his one hit, one punch. That's the kind of goal, that's the kind of gimmick of what we're doing with this. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, in the Tekra Encore update, all Warframes that have pseudo-exalted abilities, that's Atlas, Korra, Gara, Excalibur, they've all got their own slots to now modify for those abilities, so that's going to be respectively down here. So his first ability scales off whatever we put in here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just dive straight in towards the builds, and let's go ahead and start things off with what actually changed here. So this got a couple of buffs. It's got increased critical chance, it's got increased status chance, but most importantly, and where it really excels, is the impact radius now scales a lot more per combo that you're basically doing. So Atlas has 3 punches, 1, 2, 3, and on the third one you get the maximum amount of overall impact range. My build does about like 17 meters, so I wouldn't really need an influence with this setup to go and keep you guys aware of that. We're just looking to go and hit lots of big numbers and just be a bit explosive with the build. So yes, very, very good changes. So my build goes as follows on this one. First of all, I'm going to be using Raffle, which we'll get to a bit later when we get towards Atlas. So basically it's going to be a critical one-shot type build. All right, it's going to have a lot of scaling towards it, so I want to go and scale against the enemies, and I want to go and keep my combo duration nice and high as well, which we'll go and get to in a moment. So let's go and start things off with damage. Now, in terms of damage mods, Condition Overload is going to be your scaling mods. This basically just means I'm going to need to outsource elements and statuses to other things. Secondary weapons, primary weapons, companions. I want them to go and do lots of different elements, and then I want to apply this mod on this weapon. If you don't care about that, and if you don't want to go and scale and you don't care about big boy numbers, you can just go and do this and it's still a viable build. You'll still hit millions of damage. You'll still be an absolute big tanky boy, a big bashful boy who's just knocking people down. It'll still go and be a powerhouse of a build, all right? But this one allows me to scale a lot further, but it's going to require a very specific loadout if I apply this. Now, as I said, range, reach, all of that good stuff, basically chuck it in, get the most out of it. Same goes with Atlas as well. Range is going to be very, very important. Chuck it in there. Quality of life is going to be phenomenal for the overall range that you're going to be doing on the builds. So from there onwards, since I'm going to be using Raffle, my critical chance is basically sorted. However, if you don't have critical chance in the build, you do want to be running this mod here, okay? This is called Blood Rush, and it scales your critical chance with your combo multiplier. But do keep in mind, Landslide itself also scales with combo counter, gaining 1 additional damage per combo multiplier. And again, that always maxes out at 12 times as well, all right? So chuck this in. If you don't have a critical chance, put this over Gladiator Might, okay? Now, if you do have critical chance because it's coming from your Raffle subsumable, then just keep the Gladiator Might here for critical damage, which is great. This is critical damage as well, also great. This is scaling critical damage. Now, this gives me 120% scaling critical damage, so that's why I'm chucking it in there. It also does give me critical chance, but again, we don't really care about that critical chance so much because again, my Raffle is going to be giving me a lot of critical chance anyways. Now from there, these next 3 are subjective to change. This is entirely up to you. Please go ahead and change them as you please. Now, the reason why I've ran this faction mods with this element combination is because I'm going against the Archon, so therefore I'm trying to like min-max what I'm doing against that faction. So these are faction mods. They're multiplicative to damage mods. This is going to be 55% multiplicative to whatever I've got going on over here, which is going to be like 400-500% melee damage with my condition overloads when you see all of my elements that I'm applying. So this is going to be multiplicative to it. If I was to go against the Grineer or the Infested or so forth, would I need to change his mods? Yes, if I'm scaling. Now, I won't lie to you again, the purpose of this build is go ahead and just hit big funny numbers and just feel like an absolute like juggernaut. That's all I want to go and do. So yes, this is great. If you do not want this though, and you're looking for a general build with the prime pressure point instead of this, you can also go ahead and run the Spoil Strike mod if you wanted to. The attack speed does not hurt how quick you attack with the weapon. It's an ability, not so much an actual weapon itself. I know that sounds a bit weird. The mods enhance the ability, but if you want to go ahead and cast faster, then you would go and use things like natural talent and so forth. It's about the ability itself. So you can pop this in, that's fine. It's 100 melee damage, and you don't need to go and change your factions as often, all right? But for me, I want bigger numbers, so I'm going to go and put that in there. Now, since we're going for bigger numbers, since we're going against the Archon, Viral is going to be really nice in here. This gives me the biggest elemental mod that I can get at 1.65 times respectively inside the formula. And then I can also go ahead and get the Vicious Frost in here as well. So this gives me a combination of Viral, which, as you can see over there, gets increased by 50% damage efficacy against the Archon. So this Viral is actually 50% more effective against Archon, which is why this is also in here as well. Does that make sense? So ideally, if you want to understand how that would look if I was to change that, let's say I wanted to go against Grenier, I would pop that in, and then as you could imagine, this is only against Archon, so therefore I need to figure out, well, what's good against Grenier. Well, we know Corrosive is good against Grenier, and as you can see now, that's how I would change the builds. Get the idea? But it's up to you. For now, you can't really go wrong with just having elements on the weapon, and Viral is always just going to be nice to go and have in there anyways. All right, it's up to you what you want to go and put else in there. But raw damage, critical chances, critical damage, critical multipliers. If you really want to go ahead and do things like sacrificial pressure, sacrificial steel, you could do, but we're not really heavy attacking, so you won't get that much out of it. But yeah, that's basically what we're going to be doing. Let me go and quickly put this back really fast. So that's basically the build there. Now, I do have melee exposure. This basically means on ability cast, I gain 60% corrosive damage to melee strikes for 25 seconds, but it stacks up to 240%. Well, the whole purpose about this build is that I'm going to be using the ability non-stop. It's basically going to be Landslide, which is the punching ability. So this is 240% free extra damage, elemental corrosive damage added in towards the build. That's great. Okay, so we chuck that on. That's gonna apply very, very tasty towards what we're doing with this setup. So hopefully you understand how we're building that. Now, as for Atlas himself, what I'm going to be doing, like how I originally said, is this is going to be a raffle build centered around his Landslide. Raffle is this ability here. I get this from Calervo. Now, if you do not have this ability, or if you can't get this ability in it, like I said, just put critical chance on your Landslides. And if you want to put anything else in here, that's fine. Any kind of weapon enhancing things like Rhino's Roar and so forth, you can go and put in here. You're just looking to go ahead and make sure that your Landslide does more damage. That's all you're looking to go and do. But we want the critical chance from this. It synergizes really well with melee setups. So that's what this is going to be doing, all right? 197% melee critical damage additive to the 35% base that I had on the build. Now, Landslide is going to be the main thing in here, but what you will go notice, Landslide has a combo of 3, so it's always 3 punches. Each combo that you're doing increases your overall range. As you can see, that is a 17.6 meter explosiveness that I've got in there. Now, I can change this quite a few different ways, because you'll notice, like, I don't have stretch in here, I don't have cutting drift. Yeah, I could get quite explosive with this build if I really wanted to, but just for now, I've kind of got it set up in a way that I like it. But yes, if you're looking to min-max and get even more range in here, you can do. If you're looking to min-max, get even more strength in here, you can also do that as well. So just keep in mind, that's basically what we're doing. Now, as for the stat statistics, or stat priority on the left-hand side over here, what we're going to be aiming for is range. Like I said, range is going to be your quality of life. I basically want to explode. When I hit on the enemy, I want to hit as many enemies as I can around that center of impact. All right, put some range on it. The quality of life on him now is so much better than it was prior to the Tech Roll Encore update. So I'm really, really liking the spot for this build. Now, if you want more strength, again, ramp that up. Strength's only going to go and give you more damage. It's going to go ahead and buff this even more to give you even more critical chance. The overall returns that you get with strength is just going to be really, really nice. But keep in mind, I can get strength from other things like Arcanes, from Archon Shards, from I can also go and get strength from Focus Skulls. I can get it from the Grimoire book. I can get strength from other areas, so I don't always need to go ahead and overload this with strength right now. Okay, now, so here's my range mods over there. I do want to go and talk about this mod though, and why I have this one instead of stretch. The reason why I've got this one is because this also gives me energy spent on abilities as converted to shields. Now that's going to be important, because my survivability actually comes from not only the passive rubble, which we'll get to in a moment, but it actually comes from when you're in Landslide, you're invulnerable. Like, you're invincible, you're invulnerable, lovely stuff. So long as you're technically looking at an enemy spamming your 1, you can't take damage. But once you're done spamming your 1 and you've got nothing to hit, you can take damage. Well, during that time, as I'm like looking around and searching for an enemy and keeping my combo going, I'll be fine, I'll be invulnerable. But at the end, I'll then have like no shields, and I'm just standing there like, well, this is a bit awkward. But what I will have is the rubble passive, which is armor. So what I figured was just go and get a little bit of shield gating. This basically means, again, energy spent on the abilities converted to shields. So what I can go do is get the biggest strength mod on here, because again, strength works for damage. It hurts my efficiency, but that's okay, because with lower efficiency, it means abilities cost more. And if abilities cost more, this scales more from abilities costing more, if that makes sense. So it's going to give me a bit more shit. So even if I have like 10 shield in the background, it's fine. It gives me, again, that status of, it gives me that shield gating protection when I come out of it, even if it's just for like an 0.7 second or 0.3 second. It gives me a little bit of extra survival. Most of the time though, you should just be fine, because you should really be looking to combo things, and you'll also be using primers like the Epitaph, so you'll be shooting enemies and they'll be like crowd controlled in like, you know, electric or heat or whatever, you know, whatever kind of primers you're using. So you should be all right. There should be downtime for you to survive, but that's why I've got that in there. Now, as for your energy, it's up to you how you want to go and take your energy. As always, I have the prime flow situation with the equilibrium. So this is what I'm going to be doing here. Now, equilibrium goes really well because if I'm going to be hurting my energy a lot, I definitely want to be getting energy from other means. And if I had to pick between a streamline or an equilibrium, I'd always pick an equilibrium at this point. This basically means whenever an enemy drops a health orb, I can also go and get energy from that health orb. Things like Xmas units guaranteed to go and drop health orbs when they die. But more importantly, Synth Deconstruct from my companion is also going to help me get some health orbs whenever enemies take damage from my companion as well. So ideally, equilibrium is going to work really well here. Now, as for flow is going to come in here for two reasons. Number one, keep in mind, my energy consumption is basically and should only boil down to 2 abilities. Now, I am going to be using 3 abilities inside the builds. We'll get to Petrify in a moment. So only 2 abilities are actually going to be using energy, right? But the second reason for this is because this goes with my Archon Shards, which we'll get to a little bit later, but I'm using Violet Archon Shards. So I kind of need to be over 500 energy minimum for this build. Again, Prime Flow is going to go ahead and solve that. That's great. So let's go talk about energy really quickly. So Landslide is actually going to cost me no energy whatsoever if Rubble Heap is at 1400. So the way that this basically works is Rubble Heap states that when I'm above 1400 rubble, Landslide costs no energy, it deals 2 times the amount of damage and travels 2 times quicker. So let's go and talk about rubble. What is rubble? Rubble is whenever I kill an enemy that has been petrified by stone in any way, shape or form. That is when my third ability comes in, Petrify. But my third ability also gives me damage vulnerability. So it kind of synergizes pretty nicely. So you'll see that what I go and do is I'll press my third ability, then I'll press my first ability. So I'll kill them and then I will get rubble. Rubble also gives me armor, which helps my survival. But once I get over 1400s, the maximum cap is 1500. 1500. Once I'm over 1400, this ability now costs nothing, and this is the main ability that I'm always spamming. So it's really good to go ahead and have this cost literally nothing, so long as I keep an eye on my passive in the bottom right hand corner, right? But so I know some people might be like, well, what about this augment down here called Path of Statues? You can put it in there. I just don't like using it myself. But if you want to, please be my guest. Go ahead and use it. It basically is a landslide augment as well. It leaves a trail for 12 seconds that petrifies enemies for 6 seconds. But keep in mind, this is for enemies that are following behind you in your wake of you using landslides. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm quite explosive with the build, so enemies are flying all over the place and dying. So there's not really anything following me in my wake, right? There's not really anything going behind me here, so don't really need this. And if you wanted to, you could go and use All Gaze and put this inside the build. It just gives you additional loot, which also scales off, I believe, ability strength here. You could also consider using this inside your build as well if you wanted to, but that's your call, all right? That's what I'm saying. There's quite a few different ways you can play this build. So where were we? So yeah, so that's basically what I'm doing right there. That's where the rubble heap comes in. That's my ability rotation. I'm not really using the 4 for rumblers, but I'm just going to let you know, if you do go and use them, they're a good little distraction tool. They can help your survivability. Furthermore though, when they do go and die, they also go and drop rubble, which again can also be nice for this, but it cost me 155 and I don't really want to use that cost there. So now that I've done all of that, this is just going to be my Umbral Intensify for strength, and then now as for your Exilus mod up here, I would say there's 3 that you can go and put in here. Now his passive is when he's on the ground himself, he's made out of pure like marble right now, out of stone, he cannot be knocked down, all right? Basically you don't need Prime Sure-Footed on him. However, and I will go and be adamantly clear with this one, if you are using things like the Epitaph has like a bit of a radial kind of AoE splash. If you're jumping and you're like shooting enemies as you're going towards them, you can end up knocking yourself and staggering yourself, so keep that in mind. No, that's not enough to go and put Prime Sure-Footed in here, Prime Sure-Footed in here, but I'm just going to let you know that you can still be staggered whilst you're airborne, so just be a little bit careful. Try to stay on the ground as much as you can, and Landslide will always keep you on the ground. So power drift is going to give me ability strength, which is great. You could go ahead and use cut in drift, which gives you extra range, which again is going to only but help that. You see that third punch now, 18.8 meters. Melee influence is 20 meters. That gives you an idea as to how explosive disease. I don't know why I said it like that. That was weird. You can see how explosive this actually is. Or what you could go and do is run this mod in here. Unfortunately, I can't fit it right now, but it would be preparation. This gives you maximum energy field on spawn. This is also very, very nice because those values are kind of low, 15% and 15%. You kind of go ahead and chuck that in there. It's got really good quality of life to go and put into your build. But since I would need to kind of reform her and change a few more things, I don't really want to go and put this in there. I'm just going to stick with the power drift for now, and I'll just call it a day just for now. All right, but preparation is also going to be good. Now, as for the as for the aura mod up here, I'm going to be using the melee combo duration on this one. This is going to be a quality of life towards, again, my landslide scales its additional damage per combo multiplier. All right, so even if I don't use blood rush, I'm still going to want melee combo duration regardless. So this allows me to not go Naramon focus school, and I can stay in other focus schools like Madarai or whatever and just play around with those. All right. So it's a good augment for now. And if you don't want to go, good aura. If you don't want to go and use that, you could use things like Steel Charge. It just gives you 60% melee damage. There's nothing wrong with that. And it would also give you more overall capacity. So if you want to go and chuck that in and give yourself a little bit more room, you can do it. It gives you 18 rather than this one only giving you 14. That's an extra 4 capacity I could go and mess about with. I could put preparation in now. See what I'm saying? That's how that goes. Now, as for the Arcanes, it's entirely up to you what you want to go and do. Keep in mind, I am scaling my damage. This is all about damage. This is exactly what I want. So my Augmented gives me scaling ability strength. After 250 kills, I go and get 60% ability strength. My goal with this build is to be a little bit silly. I'm just looking to stay in survivals and just do big damage numbers. Ha ha ha. Otherwise, if I'm not looking to go and do that, I could just take this augment out. It's not really needed. And Arcane Fury is on critical hit, which I'm guaranteed with my criticals coming from Raffle. Then there's a 60% chance for 180% melee damage. And again, that's just extra damage that I'm doing, which is also going to be really nice. So it's a little bit better than the prime pressure point is what it is. The prime pressure point is 165%, there's 180%, and then I've got the condition overloads being added towards this 180%. So there's lots of damage coming over there. Now, if you want to go and use other arcanes, you can go ahead and consider using things like Arcane Energize if you need a little bit of extra energy. Maybe you haven't quite sorted that out yet. You can go and use things like Arcane Blessing, which gives you 1,250 health after you pick up a lot of health orbs, which again goes really well with the Synth Deconstruct mod a bit later. And then you can go and use things like, I don't know, Arcane Guardian or Reaper or stuff like that if you really wanted to. There's some more. You could basically outsource this as a survival if you wanted to. Things like armor, health, or things like energize, energy kind of stuff. You can go and outsource those. All right, so anyways, that's basically the build of what's going on there with Atlas. Now, as for the Archon Shards down here really quickly, this is my current setup, but again, I can get more out of this. And I will go and say really quickly, I'm hitting, I think the maximum hit that I saw was around 400 mil. So it's not a tremendous amount because you can do up to 2.1 billion, but 400 mil is definitely not anything to be like sneezed at right now. Still a lot of damage, and it will one-shot things like Acolytes and so forth and everything. So my first Archon Shard that I'm going to be using is the maximum energy field on spawn. Now, as I spoke about earlier, since you don't need the Prime Sure-Footed mod, your Exilus mod slot is open. Put in what you want to. If you want to go and put preparation, then you don't need this. And I think an extra violet mod here would actually just be calculating better than the 15% ability strength and power drift. So if you can go and put all of the violet mods here, go ahead and do so. So the violet mods, this is where I needed prime flow because it states gain 25% melee critical damage when max energy is over 500, the damage boost doubles. So this is 25%, it's actually 50 because I've got over 500 energy down here. So I've got 200% extra melee critical damage being applied towards my landslide on my build. And this is critical chance, this is critical damage. You can see how all of that is lovely jubbly synergizing together. So if I run the Tau Forge versions of these, and if I ran all 5 of them, I'd get even more damage. I'd be doing over half a bill quite easily on certain units, things like butchers and so forth, that I'd be looking for to try and get the most out of them. All right. Now, as for a few other things, go ahead and go over before I go and give you guys some gameplay. So Strun Prime, well, sorry, it doesn't have to be Strun, but you can go ahead and use a primary arcane that helps you with melee combo duration. So this one here is called primary dexterity. Again, gives me melee combo duration. This can go with the swift momentum that I'm also using, but Atlas basically, remember, he gets more damage the higher combo that he remains at. So you want to remain at that combo and not have to rebuild it all of the time. Since I'm not really going to be using any other weapon inside this build, I can just put this in for free and help him and his build, if that makes sense. So basically none of this matters. It's just this. Like a one-shot Acolytes, like a one-shot Eximuses, I could do all of that with his first ability. So again, none of these mods matter. So long as I got that, that's pretty nice towards his builds. Now, this one's a bit more crucial. This is going to be my primer, and this is my main source of priming. This is the Epitaph Prime, or just Epitaph in general. Basically, what's going to happen here is that it's got a bit of a radial whenever you go ahead and shoot it, quick shot radial attack, and it can go ahead and do extra elements. I believe it has like a cold and a blast and so forth. But if you direct shot on an enemy, it also has IPS. So I can get a lot of elements coming from this weapon. From there, since I can go and get the IPS as well, and I go and shoot them with the blast included, I can also go ahead and get radiation. I can go ahead and get magnetic, then I go ahead and put viral on here, and then I go ahead and put heat on here. So that's going to be the overall build there. Now, ideally, I want viral to be the highest in the build, so it's got the highest number here. So when I hover over status weight in there, you can see viral's got the highest percentage. Ideally, I want viral to be high because it means it's damage amplification. So the more viral procs I go and put on an enemy, the more that condition overload damage, and the more, well, condition overload is going to scale off all of this, but the more that damage that I'm doing with the Landslide is going to be higher due to the damage amplification on their health. So I hit them really hard, boff, you know? So on armored units like Archon or Grenier or so forth, this is going to work really well with that viral combination. Now, I do want to go and put multi-shot in here because of the damage instances. It basically just means that I'm going to be building up lots of different probability rolling where more and more shots are going to be, so what's that? It's a 2.8 multi-shot. So lots of different, 3 different shots are rolling 140% with a 80% chance of a 4th shot also rolling 140%, and within those 140%, there's a 42% chance that it's viral. There's a lot of like probability cycling going down the chain, which is really interesting, but you definitely want extra damage instances coming from the multi-shot in here, and lots of status going across the bottom. And then because it's going to be a bit of a radial, we're going to want prime fulmination. And again, one more time, keep in mind this does increase the overall blast radius on impact, which is great. But if you're airborne with your Atlas, do go and keep in mind, if you're too close to them, it'll stagger you whilst you're airborne, since you don't have prime sure-footed on your build. Now, as for the arcane on this, you can run one of two, in my opinion. Secondary fortify gives you a little bit of overguard whenever you go and shoot an Eximus unit, which can also go and help to your overall survival. That's pretty nice. But most importantly, what you could go and chuck in here is the Arcane Cucumber mod. And this basically means on status effect, there's a 24% chance to trigger a random status effect, which is also just nice towards it. So status effects that I don't quite have on the build could be something like electric. There'll be a 24% chance that as I apply any of these elements, I could go ahead and apply electric as well for free. Or I could go and apply toxin for free. And again, that would all scale my condition overload, which means I can get even more damage on the build. But fortify is also just nice anyways, because it's a little bit of extra survivability if I'm looking to outsource things. So that's what's going on there with my primer of choice. I'm going to be using Epitaph. Now, as for my melee of choice, since I am the melee, Atlas is the melee, I'm going to be using Praedos for its parkour velocity. This basically means whenever I roll or bullet jump, I just basically get an extra 30% overall increase to those types of actions. Any kind of parkour is going to basically extend a little bit further. This is nice for gap closing and just getting yourself around the map a lot quicker. There's nothing wrong with it. So, but since I'm not using the melee weapon itself, I might as well just go and take something that can stat stick me. Same kind of goes with this and the Arcane. It's going to be this for the evolution down there. All right, not a necessity, just gonna throw it out there as well. All right, now as for my focus score over here, I don't really need to be using the Naramon because I've got the Dexterity and I've got the Swift Momentum, so we don't have to worry about the combo counter. But if you do need to go ahead and look after your combo counter, Naramon would be the best one because of Power Spike. Once you build up your combo counter, so now you no longer hit enemies and you're about to go ahead and decay, or go ahead and lose your combo counter. If you're at 12 stacks and you built yourself up, and if you didn't have this tree, you would lose all your combo. It would just completely go. Sorry, pardon me. It'll just completely go. However, this stops it from completely vanishing, and instead it now decays instead of depleting. That's basically what this is doing. So this is really, really good if you are not running those combo counters, all right? Otherwise, what you can go and use is Mana Ray Focus School, because I can get Sling Strength, which gives me 40% ability strength. I don't need to use this an awful lot since I'm not channeling anything, but I can go and use this with things like Raffle or my Landslides, and then that's kind of nice that I can go and get more ability strength from it. Otherwise, I can go and get the Void Strike. If I do happen to go down, I can get myself back up. Power Transfer gives me a little bit of casting speed, which can just be nice for the builds. And then Phoenix Talons is just increasing the physical damage and so forth. So those ones can just normally be a little bit nice. It's going to increase your overall damage and just look after yourself. But again, not overly necessity by all means. Just Mana Ray pops in pretty handy here. Now, as for my companion, the last thing to go ahead and go over really quickly as the builds, I'm going to be using the Rigger. This is one of my go-to companions right now, but it synergizes really well with melee builds. The reason for that is because this one only hits enemies up to 10 meters away, which is great. It's an ability that saps 7 enemies within 10 meters, so this works really, really well. But due to this mod being applied, any elements that I have on my weapon, because of this mod, will now go ahead and apply to this sap. So it was a 10% chance for electric, however, it's guaranteed all of these elements over here. So I go and use the Death Machine Rifle because it gives me IPS, so it's going to give me IPS elements, and then I go and use Viral and Heat, and then I go and use Radiation and Magnetic. So I get all of those as well. Again, very similar to what I'm using with the Epitaph. It's kind of nice just go and have it in the background, a little bit passive. So sometimes I build up my Epitaph, and then sometimes this will proc and just add to the extra stacks that I'm doing. So I can't really complain about that. It's going to work out pretty well. But if you do want to go and be a little bit more min-maxing and change a few things, you can change this to like electric, since I don't have electric on my primer, or I could change it to like toxin and something else. Like I could put gas in here. You get the idea? Like gas electric, I could go and get more out of it, which give you more elements, which means I get even more from my condition overloads. So you can min-max it even further, right? I just want you guys to know there's a lot more damage that can be added there. But I spoke about it earlier, and I was saying about the equilibrium. This synergizes with the equilibrium. It's called Sympathy Construct. Enemies injured by the companion have a 25% chance to go and drop a health orb when killed. This also is just a nice way to go and help my equilibrium returns. And if you use things like Arcane Blessing, this will also go and help with the health orb drops and so forth. All right. So that should be that. Let's go put some gameplay up on the screen, and it's very traditional. Not much has overly changed in terms of the cycle or the abilities and whatnot we're doing. We're going to be one punch man, all right? We are looking to absolutely punch in and cave in their skulls in one. I want to delete their family history in one punch is what I want to go and do, all right? That is it. Their ancestors will be turning over in their graves and lovely stuff. Yeah, that's quite morbid, isn't it? I'll keep it in the video. Why not? Let's be very sinister. All we're going to basically be doing here in terms of ability cycling is make sure your rubble, which is your passive, is going to be over 1400. Okay, so I would start off missions by essentially casting my free, which is my Petrify. I want to try and get as many enemies affected by my free as possible, so I'll probably use like a choke point so it doesn't cost me too much energy. Now, once I've got like a good, I don't know, like 10, 20 enemies or whatever, now I'm going to go and hit them all with my first ability, my Landslide, kill all of them, pick up all of the rubble that they go ahead and drop, and build up to 1400 rubble. Once I'm over 1400 rubble, remember, my first ability now costs no energy, and it gets increased damage, which is going to be fantastic. And with the new changes, the radial changes, again, you wouldn't really need to run a melee influence setup on this, because a melee influence setup is 20 meters, and we're hitting over 17 meters. So it's not like I'm really losing from that overall AoE reach of melee influence. It's not needed. I'm just obliterating everything with this build, which feels great, and I enjoy the red numbers that I can end up getting from the raffle advance being applied towards the build as well. So everything synergizes really nicely. From here onwards, you just basically go ahead and keep casting your one, use your survivability with your one, your iframes, and just try and keep shooting enemies with your Epitaph or your companion and so forth, which will also go and add a bit of crowd control so enemies aren't hitting you as often. All right, besides from that, your one-shot Acolytes, your one-shot Eximus, there's not going to be many things that are going to stand alive with you on this build. So I'm going to go and bring you guys back here. That's it from today's video. Updated 2025 Atlas build right there. Go have some fun with it. It's all just about min-maxing and just kind of getting more numbers, but as you can clearly see, we could do way more damage with this. I don't know, I predict or anticipate about 700-800 million if you really did go ahead and push it a bit further. Maybe you could do more than that, but for the most part, we're doing about 400 million with this one. It's enough to one-shot majority of enemies, even like level cap enemies. It'll one-shot majority of enemies. It's a very, very strong build, but survivability will be a little bit iffy if you're going to go to level cap, so probably don't. Anyways, that's going to be it from me. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I really do hope you guys enjoyed it. Like the video if you did go and enjoy it. Share the video with a friend if you think someone else out there would benefit from a video like this, and subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. But as always, I'll be catching you guys again in the next video. Take it easy, guys.